Hello, everyone, and thanks for listening. So, this article is out of the Wall Street Journal, and it's about the huge cocaine bust. Inside shipping record cocaine bust. And so, this is a biggie. An audacious effort to use 9,400-mile commercial trade lane as an international drug smuggling corridor came apart in a nighttime raid on a ship at sea. And so this stuff's still going on. So apparently, it's not just what people see on some docu-series that happened a long time ago. It's something that's continuously happening. Wall Street Journal is reporting this. So it's really big. So this is by Costas Paris. Okay, so this is how much cocaine this is. Just take a look. Look at this. Look like huge suitcases. And they're just pulling them out one at a time, one at a time. Some of the 39,000 pounds of cocaine U.S. Customs and Border Protection and Homeland Security investigations seized on the MSC. I guess it's the Gianni in 7 shipping containers in Philadelphia on June 17th. This was recent. And so look at that. They look like huge suitcases. And so this is pretty much flooding all of the US. It's been doing that. And so it just seems like it gets worse and worse and worse. And so over the years they've gotten so clever with how they bring drugs over. You wouldn't believe. I mean, they find all kinds of ways. The most crazy way that I've seen, one of the most, was where there was a shipment of fish. And so what they were doing was putting the drugs inside of the empty bodies of fish. They would somehow stuff, they would pull out all the guts of the fish, and then they would stuff the drugs in there, and they were sending it through the airports as if they're sending food over to like a restaurant. And so I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of these places in California and the US all over are, like some of these businesses are fronts for this type of activity. And so look at all of these drugs. And so everybody's complaining about the opioid crisis, and they're talking about trying to, spend money to help people get off drugs. But look at what's happening. There's so many drugs that floods this country, and it's so lucrative. It's so lucrative. The guys that are sending it over here, they make a lot of money. That's the reason why it continues to flood this country and all abroad. And so on a cloudy evening on June 16th, the MSC Guyane was, now if I'm pronouncing it wrong, excuse me for that, but it looks like it says the MSC Guyane. Or, yeah, that's what it looks like it says, was making its way into Delaware Bay for a stopover at the port of Philadelphia when it was intercepted by boats carrying about a dozen armed U.S. Customs and Border Protection and other federal agents. And so agents climbed a rope ladder onto the container ship and checked first to see if the locks on the steel containers that hold millions of dollars worth of goods were intact. And so the seals on some boxes didn't look right. So that's what made them looked through all of it to see what was what. So a person with a direct knowledge of the matter said customs officers escorted 1,030-foot long ship, a long ship, part of the Mediterranean Shipping Company. So the fleet that handles a significant share of the world's seaborne trade to the port of South Philadelphia, and early the next morning, 7 of the boxes were x-rayed and opened to reveal bales and bales of cocaine, according to the U.S. officials. And so this was on the news this morning, I'm sure. So it took about a week to weigh. A week, that's a lot. A whole week to weigh the document and document the bricks. That's what I was telling you about in a previous video I did, where I saw documentaries that were really up to date. Actually, they were more to closer to this year. And there's just bricks and bricks and bricks of this stuff. And like the way it works is like wherever in the country where they're cultivating it, it may be, it's worth a lot of money in that country, but once it hits US soil and it goes to these like cities like Los Angeles, Philadelphia, all like Seattle, all the metropolitan cities, New York, and in even the rural areas, if you're thinking about like places in the Midwest, wherever the drugs are really prevalent, just here all over the US, it's worth like millions of dollars. And the guys that send it over here, they're rich just from delivering the drugs. They're getting rich delivering the drugs. And so customs officers escorted a 1,031-foot long ship, part of a Mediterranean shipping company fleet that handles a significant share of the world's seaborne trade. So trade, get it? Seaborne trade. So like when they ship different things from different countries that you're trading with the US, whatever your goods are. And that's a clever way of trying to bring the cocaine over here. So it's a front basically. So it was going to the port of South Philadelphia. And early the next morning, 7 of the boxes were x-rayed and opened that revealed the bales and bales of cocaine, according to the U.S. officials. So it took a whole week to weigh and document all those bricks. So in all, they weighed 39,525 pounds, nearly 20 tons of cocaine. The haul, with an estimated street value, now listen to this, $1.3 billion, was the largest drug seizure in the 230-year history of the U.S. Customs Agency, and one of the biggest ever by American authorities. The biggest, hugest, one of their hugest busts. And so you see all these people making videos about, how there's this flood of drugs and the opioid crisis and things like that. But when you got shipments of this stuff coming over, the other stuff is coming the same way and in clever ways, this much. And by the time it hits the US, $1.3 billion. Somebody is rich. Some bodies are rich off of this type of stuff. 39,525 pounds, nearly 20 tons of cocaine, pure. So the find sent a shockwave through the shipping world. So it hit operations at one of the world's largest ship operators, rattled an arm of investment banks, J.P. Morgan Chase and Company, because all of these companies, they do business through here. So cranes unload the freight ship MSC Guyana after the U.S. seized more than a ton of cocaine, more tons of cocaine at the Packer Marine Terminal in Philadelphia on June 18th. So you can see, we've seen this. I've seen this. It's in Long Beach. It's in Philadelphia. There's different ports. It's in uh, what is it? There's different ports all around, and you see in this setting where they're shipping goods and all the things that come to the U.S. from all these countries. Well, some of those containment units are full of drugs. That's how it's getting over here. That's one of the. That's only one way. That's not the only, but that's how you get a lot more drugs over here. There are also people who will use aircrafts. They'll fly it on planes, send it through, try to send it through suitcases, send it in food, in toys, all kinds of different ways. There's all kinds of different ways. And so you wouldn't believe. So JPF Morgan and Chase and Company that owns the ship and raised questions about the security behind a business that on any given day has millions of containers moving between the world's trading nations. It's just what I said. It was a result of what shipping's executives say is a growing trend in drug transport. This is not a growing trend. This has been happening. See, they're telling you it's a growing trend. It's been happening for I don't know how long. This has been happening. Some of your restaurants or your little tire shops or some of those little places that you see, sometimes those little businesses seem like little businesses and they don't really do very well, but they're doing well because it's a front so that they can launder money and they're involved in the drug trade. So smugglers who have long used small planes, speedboats, trucks, and other transport have grown bolder about stuffing large amounts of narcotics into commercial distributing shipping networks, trusting that illicit cargo won't raise alarms in the enormous stream of goods moving between countries. So many ships go unchecked because they're not really checking that thorough for these type of things, which they should be, but that's how they get the greatest amount of drugs and profit of drug over here. And in other smugglers, they bring along container seals that look very close to original ones, said an executive at the container ship operator that com- competes with MSC. So, smuggling at sea. Authorities believe nearly 20 tons of cocaine was loaded onto the MSC Guyana as it sailed the Pacific Ocean and made port calls between Chile and Philadelphia. And so they have like a graph, if you want to look at it, if you can't see it that well here, you can see where the drugs are coming from. Okay. And so they started out May 30th, Conception Bay, Chile, Argentina. They go past Bolivia, Brazil. So they go past Peru and Colombia and then the port, these are ports through Panama Canal and Cristobal Port. And then they go to the Bahamas. There's a free port and the Big Stone Beach, Delaware. And then June 17th, Philadelphia. They get to that port. So there's different ports. And so they can get the largest amount of shipment of goods and the largest amount of shipment of drugs as well over here. And so the Guyana case is under seal, but interviews with people familiar with the investigation and an affidavit by the federal agent provide the first detailed account of the audacious smuggling attempt and how the U.S. authorities intercepted it. Okay, and so I don't think it's over. I'm just telling you right now, there's other ways they can get drugs over here, and there's a will, there's a way. According to the affidavit prepared by the Department of Homeland Security agents, parts of which were reviewed by the Wall Street Journal, the MSC Guyana was approached twice by more than 10 boats while it was sailing at night in the Pacific Ocean between Chile, Peru, and Panama. So the ship's crane was used to bring the drugs on board, and two members stuffed the bales into containers holding other cargo, the affidavit said. So one crew member operated the crane to bring on numerous bales of cocaine that were wrapped in netting, along with bales of cocaine that were replacement seals, which would be used on the containers in which the containers of the cocaine was concealed. The affidavit has said. So this is how these bricks look. They look something like this, and they're wrapped up like bricks. And so after the clandestine loading, the Guyane continued on the route that took it from Panama Canal and up to the U.S. East Coast, similar to paths followed earlier this year by two MSC ships that were also found to be carrying cocaine as well. But like I said, this is not over, and it's going to happen again, and it's going to happen in other ways. If they don't, if they're not able to just do it by the ports, they're going to find other ways to get other ingenious ways of how to get the drugs over here. So in February, customs agents seized 1.6 tons, okay, of cocaine on the MSC Carlotta at the port in Newark in New Jersey. So this has been happening. This has been happening. So it's constant, and it's going to happen again. So then in March, authorities found 1,200 pounds of cocaine aboard the MSC Desire at the port of Philadelphia. And Philadelphia was the MSC Guyana's only planned stop before the ship was due to head across the Atlantic Ocean for planned calls in Rotterdam in the Netherlands. So Antwerp, Belgium, Le Havre, or Le Havre, France. Authorities believe European buyers were ready to take in the cocaine and distribute it across the continent. You think? That's their biggest market. They make all kinds of money with that. And so shipping executives say the ship's role in one of the few South American services connecting to Europe likely drew the interest of smugglers. So the route of the earlier bus raids alarms for law enforcement authorities. Investigators said that they can't connect the MSC Guyana shipment with the two previous cases involving the company's ship. But cocaine lords are increasingly using the sea transport to bring their product to the Western markets, which they've been doing for a long time. This is not new. This is probably a huge, huge bust, but this is nothing new. So there are more drug seizures now on ships than in the past. And so it's getting more to the point to where it's increasing. So we are investigating whether the MSC ships are particularly targeted, but any vessel coming from the South of America or South America can raise a red flag. So U.S. Customs, she's holding a brick in her hand. Border Protections Director, Field Operations Casey Durst, speaks with members of the media at the news conference at U.S. Customs House in Philadelphia, June 21st. And so this was a huge drug seizure. And so 8 crew members have been charged and are being held in the U.S. And additional 16, including the captain, were allowed to leave Philadelphia this month. So MSC, the world's second biggest container ship operator by a capacity, faces big losses after paying $50 million in cash and bond to release the vessel. 50 million. Tell me they always say, we don't have any money. We don't have any money. We don't have any money. There's money out there. It's just who's dealing with it and what they're doing with it. There's money everywhere. And it's just people want to be stingy, or they want to do what they want to do with their money. That's what it is. And so the U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Pennsylvania says it plans to seek permanent forfeiture of the ship, which is less than 2 years old and worth an estimated amount of $90 million. This is big, big money. So MSC has put the Guyana back in commercial services. Okay, so the ship is to be returned to the U.S. within 3 months if a court backs the forfeiture case. But the seizure has dealt a blow to the company's reputation now. It's like something that people are looking at until the next company gets a big, huge bus and they do something with some other shipping company. And so that's I'm adding that in there because I'm sure that it's going to happen again. And so, and then probably even bigger than this one that they caught. But the seizure has dealt a blow to this company's reputation, and the U.S. authorities have temporarily removed the carrier from the list of trusted operators that can move goods through security checks more quickly. And so, and it says to share your thoughts, and I am sharing my thoughts. I think this has been going on, and it has increased, but there's going to be other ways they're going to try to get the drugs over here. Trust, they will. MSC, which also runs a cruise line, has its corporate base in Geneva, Switzerland. It is closely held by a family of, okay, so there's a name, Gianluigi Aponte, an Italian billionaire. Okay, so that's his name. He's Italian, so I probably desecrated it, but he's a billionaire with a net worth, listen to this, of $9 billion. Mr. Aponte, okay, is one of the biggest players in Europe's maritime industry with more than 400 ships under his company's control. He is paid. He doesn't have to work at all in his life. Just sit back and watch the money grow. And so there's money out there. It's just who's got it, what they're doing with it, and who it benefits. And so the company is trying to reassure its shipping customers that operations are running smoothly while it reinforces security on its vessels. So the shippers are asking questions about South America or American cargo on the MSC ships, said a broker in the Netherlands. So 3 cocaine busts in such a short period of time are too many, okay? So they don't want their cargo to be delayed or extra security checks on the MSC vessels. So MSC spokesman or spokesperson said that the firm wasn't the target of any probe. The company said it chooses its crews from a pool of seafarers and that it has been vetted by the U.S. authorities and given special visas. And so, wow. Following the bust, the carrier said it was adding security guards and on the ship sailing from the western coast of the South America, adding closed circuit cameras on its vessels and implementing cabin checks on board to ensure workers don't have contraband containers, seals, or other evidence of drug smuggling. Okay, so corrections and amplifications. So I guess these are corrections of the article. So the U.S. Attorney uh, for the Eastern District of Pennsylvania says it plans to seek permanent forfeiture of the MSC Guyane. So earlier version of this article incorrectly stated that the U.S. Attorney of the Eastern District of Philadelphia also authorities had seized 39,000 pounds of cocaine from the MSC Guyane. A caption in the earlier version of the article incorrectly stated the seizure to be 35,000, so it was a lot more. It was more than 35,000 pounds. It was 39 pounds of cocaine, so it was a lot more. So those are the corrections. Basically, it's going over with the article. I guess when the story was developing, they were trying to get the numbers right. But this is what I see multiple. Has anybody, if you have Netflix or if you have any of those, there's documentaries and documentaries of all of these drugs just flooding the US. Flooding the US. They're coming over here like almost every day. There's some way that they're getting drugs over here. They can make as many programs as they want to. They can put money into as many services that they want to. But for some reason, the drugs find a way. They find a way to get these drugs over here. Look at all of this. just bricks and bricks of it. And so it's not only the cocaine, but other drugs are coming over here just the same. Look at these big containment units. You could put like maybe what, like 3 or 4 houses in there? They're huge. You know, the lumber to make houses, rather, it carries huge, huge shipments of goods. And so there's so many creative ways. I mean, how many people do you need to go through all of those containment units and to check thoroughly? What, how do you know which ones you need to look for and which ones might be safe? Maybe all of them. You have to check through. How long would it take to get through all of this to see which ones are safe to pass through US Customs and which ones aren't? And so it's crazy, but wow, this is a lot of drugs and a lot of money that comes along with it. With that being said, I'm going to let this video go. What do you think about that? It just seems to me, what I've noticed is that here in California now, I will say this, I've noticed certain stores, certain shops, little markets that don't make sense. I mean, how many tire shops do we need on each corner? You know, I've always wondered about things like that. Little car places that don't make sense. You never really see any cars being sold out of there. They just kind of sit and nobody's looking and checking for it. It raises some suspicion. Little food places is like, how many taco joints do you need? And little pupuserias do you need on each corner? There's one down the street, then you walk less than 2 blocks, there's another one down the street. It's like, are you really in that much competition? Something's not right. And this is just what I've observed here in California. I believe there's a racket that's going on here. That those are ways to say that you're working in America and hard workers, but you use these little places as fronts so that you can launder money, that you can bring the drugs in. It's a perfect place to hide drugs in little mom and pop restaurants, little tire shops. You can hide the drugs in tires, do all kinds of stuff. You're pretending like you're, you know, selling old cars, but the cars are used for transporting drugs and bringing things in, putting it in trucks and making in creative ways to hide the drugs inside of cars. And the cars are sitting right in plain daylight. Everybody can see it, but nobody's checking because these are poor neighborhoods and nobody's looking. But somebody is looking and they're questioning it, but nobody says anything and nobody's really investigating any of this. And so this is why you have these type of stories right here. Because now they're getting bolder. No, they're not getting bolder. They already been doing this. And they're just getting more creative and more outright overt with, okay, if we can get this in here and nobody's checking, let's start bringing in more drugs. Let's bring in more drugs. They're not looking at these little shops that we got over here. They're not looking at these little places, these little hole in the wall markets. They're not looking, but they're looking at who's really in here. You know, it's just crazy. And I feel too, I will say this, I don't know if anybody knows this, I'm adding more into this, but there are some barbershops. We have some barbershops where gangs meet. There are certain barbershops in California you know, where certain Latin gangs will kind of hang out at. And I believe the reason why they needed some of those places is because they're part of a bigger group that might be dealing with this kind of stuff here. And, about a couple of years back, which was not that long ago, there was a barber shop and there was a shooting just across from the barbershop, and there's these local gangs that were meeting in the barbershop. We have these meetings. I'm like, what gang has meetings in a place of business? And so the person that opened up the business is okay with this. They must be a part of this. And so these are the same people you hear talking about we're hard workers and we're coming and we're going to do things and we're trying to look for better lives and we're trying to work hard, and they're working hard, all right, doing this, what you see right here. And I've been noticing it happen a lot more and more. And the same thing that's driving people to come here, the violence and the the, the chaos from other countries, it's coming over here. It's already here. It's just they're quiet about it, and they have little pockets where they hang out at, and nobody's checking. I feel like at some point, the same things that are happening in these other countries where people are running, they're running right into the same traps. And the only thing is that there's just too many people out in the open that are watching, and so they haven't gotten to the point where they've really taken over, but they're slowly growing. And I believe the same chaos could eventually take place in some of these little neighborhoods where you'll have more instance of more drug trafficking and more busts, more crimes, more protest about these kind of things. And then it'll bring up the issue, believe it or not, of are our borders safe? Who's bringing things in here, and what kind of people are coming here that are in cooperation with this racket going on? And two, there are people that are already here that are turning a blind eye, and they see what's happening. They might be even a part of the corruption. And every now and then somebody gets pissed off they didn't get a cut of money, and somebody rats them out. So I don't think this is the end of this. I think it's just the beginning. With that being said, like, comment, subscribe, and thanks for listening.